So joining us today is Mr. Jack. Will you pronounce your last name so I don't say it wrong?
Underkofler.
Jack Underkofler from Dead Poet Society. How you doing today, Jack?
I'm good. How are you?
Great. We're doing great. So we asked you to come on. We're going to be talking about Axiom, but before we do that, we want to talk a little bit about Dead Poet Society because we have the pleasure to speak with you today. So I wrote down a couple questions that I was going to ask that I can't get to because they're on my phone for some reason. Here we go. So first question I want to ask, can you tell us kind of what led you guys to form Dead Poet Society? Like, how'd you guys become to be what you are?
Okay, well, it's kind of an interesting story. So there's two Jacks in the band. The guitarist is also named Jack, and he and our original bassist, Nick, had been trying to form a band since they got to Berkeley, and they grew up together, so they've been in bands together their whole lives. And they got to Berkeley and they started going through, singers and drummers, and they quickly became known as one of the worst bands at Berkeley. And there was actually a meme going around the school about how bad they were. And they had put out this cover of Pumped Up Kicks, and it's not on the internet anymore, but oh my gosh, is it a gem. And it was so bad, in fact, 6 months before I joined the band, I convinced one of my best friends who was drumming at the time to leave the band because I thought they were so bad. And I happened to be friends, just by random coincidence, I happened to be friends with Jack's roommate, a guy named Peter Chun. And I used to hang out with him, and one day Jack heard me singing and was like, would you mind singing on a couple songs we wrote? And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. I was just trying to be polite and kind. And so I went and sang on some of their songs. And then I kind of tried to ghost them. I'm not going to lie. Like I tried to slip away because I really wasn't interested in joining a band. And they kind of kept hounding me like, dude, come on, just come write with us. Come write with us. Just try it out. And one day, our original bassist, Nick, showed up at my front doorstep because he knew where I lived. And he called me. He was like, yo, open the front door. And I was like, okay. And so I opened the door and he's like, let's write. And I was like, oh no. But I didn't have an excuse to not write with them. So I was like, okay, come on in. Let's do this. And that day we ended up writing a song called 145, which is off of Axion. It was the first song we ever wrote together. And Will had joined the band. Will, our drummer, had joined the band around the same time I did. So after that, I was like, oh, there's actually something cool here. There's something interesting. I've never written with people before. I'd never written rock music. Before that, I was doing a bunch of acoustic stuff. I was like, this seems like a lot of fun. And my roommates at the time were like, no, you don't want to join that band, dude. And I was like, no, I think there's something cool here. So here we are, 7.5 years later, grinding away.
Yeah, and you guys were at Berkeley in Boston, right?
Yes, Berkeley in Boston.
Yeah, so we're south of Boston here. We're in Abington.
I noticed the Suffolk University logo.
Yeah, I go to Suffolk University, so that.
Oh, you do? That's awesome. Yeah. I had a couple friends that went there.
Oh, no kidding. Yeah. It's a time right now, especially with COVID, all virtual.
Yeah, is the campus closed, open? How are classes?
They're a combination. So we have some that are on campus, some that are off campus.
Okay.
It depends on what kind of classes you have. So you guys have a very interesting sound. And I don't know if you listened to our last episode or not, but one of the things Spotify categorizes you guys as is laid back and heavy. Would you say that that's an accurate description of how you guys sound?
Yes. Yeah. I think for a lot of our music, yeah. We have we're quickly coming up on finishing. Well, we've pretty much finished. It's locked and ready to go. But we have an album that I guess by the time this comes out will have been announced. So I'll talk about it somewhat, at some length. But yeah, I think some of the songs off of that, especially kind of lay into that laid back and heavy vibe. I would say it's pretty appropriate.
I hope that when that album comes out, we'll have you back on to talk about it.
Yeah, I'd love to. That'd be so much fun.
So what kind of influences do you guys have? Because we talk about your sound, laid back and heavy. It is a unique thing. Like when we talked about Dempsey before, it's like you can picture a bunch of different things, but you can't put your finger on exactly what things those are. So what kind of influences do you guys have that create Dead Poet Society? Like what comes together?
I think that we're kind of lucky in the sense that we all kind of share rock as a common ground for a genre that we love, but everybody comes from so many different backgrounds musically. Like growing up, I was, when I went to Berkeley, pretty much every guy that had touched a guitar in my age range, my generation was a John Mayer fan, so I was coming from that background, and Coldplay and John Mayer were kind of the two bands that really influenced me when I first got to Berkeley. And Jack had come from kind of a technical metal background, and so had Nick. And Will was huge into like Snarky Puppy, those kind of more so jam bands, Dave Matthews. He loved a lot of pop punk, a lot of hip hop. And so I think the nice thing is that because everybody in the band writes together, there is no captain's chair. We all kind of contribute. It allows this very unique but narrow pathway of everybody needs to love it if it's going to make it into the song. And because we come from so many different backgrounds, it kind of forced us down this one hole, but it ended up being something that we really liked because it became our sound,
Right.
And yeah, I mean, it was really just the fact that I think we all came from a bunch of different backgrounds, but we all love strong melodies. And when it comes down to writing, it was just anything that just made us go like, yeah, and then you try to get as many of those, like when you hear something that just, it like your whole insides like tighten up, you're just like, yes. If you collect enough of those moments and you've got a song. And so, yeah.
Yeah, I totally understand that. I'm putting out a record of my own in the next few weeks, and that's what I've been doing a lot, was with the mixing.
Oh, nice.
To a point where you just, oh man, that's so great. I didn't hear this when I was recording it, but yes, it sounds great. So that's super important, and I'm really glad that even you guys get the same feeling that I do.
Oh yeah, I mean the whole point of writing music is to feel something. If you're not doing that, what are you doing?
Yeah, definitely. So why don't we get into Axiom a little bit? Why don't we chat a little bit about that? I don't know why I stuttered, but
no, didn't even notice it.
All right. So the first track is Creature. You want to talk a little bit about Creature?
Yeah. So Creature kind of came around from this one show that we played in my hometown in Virginia. It was actually at my high school, and I had done like choir growing up. So I was very close with the choir teacher at my high school. And I told him I had a band, and he was like, well, do you want to come play like the show choir invitational, which is where they get like 12 schools together and all these people come and watch all these people dance and sing and whatnot. And you're like, yeah, I mean, we're a rock band, but fuck it. Like, yeah, let's do it. And we went down there and played. And I really wasn't reading the situation right, and I was like swearing like crazy. I was just saying fuck left and right, and to the point where they kicked us off stage. And the head of Hampton's like music department, it was this guy named Mr. D, was like livid, and he was the one that yanked us, and he was like lecturing us backstage. Fucking fuck this guy, I don't like whatever. And so just having the fact that we drove all the way from Boston to Virginia, like 600 miles to play this show, and got kicked off a stage, really kind of set a little bit of that, teenage angst in us, a little bit of rage. And so that song kind of comes from that whole experience.
Wow, that's a great story. What's the word I'm trying to say? I think that's a great way you guys start this record, because you have those moments in the studio that, on the tail end and the beginning of it, you capture like you're actually people beforehand and get into the song. And it's just so much, every single song on this record is so much fun. And I think that's,
thank you.
Like I blast this in the car at least once a day. So I appreciate the creation. So Sutton is our next track. So Genius.com, which is what we usually reference, says this is about Popcorn Sutton, or at least in a reference
Yes,
to.
it is.
You want to talk
a reference to Popcorn Sutton.
You want to talk a little more about that and maybe even the track as well?
Yeah. So in the early stages of our writing process, one way to, find common ground in a subject to write about was we all loved history. So we'd just pick notable people that kind of gave us some sort of inspiration for writing. And that guy in particular, Popcorn Sutton, we watched this Johnny Knoxville special on him, where he talked about how the guy just literally did not give a fuck. He was just making moonshine in the middle of North Carolina in the backwoods, just being him, absolutely himself. And we just thought that was hilarious and so cool. And so we decided to kind of write a song about him. And it kind of goes through this journey of the kind of we like that old Delta blues kind of sound, as you can hear in the verses. We really lo-fied it, and we were mixing our own stuff at the time. It doesn't sound that great, but it's just kind of a slow journey through his life kind of thing, or a fast journey through his life. I don't know how long the song is, 3 minutes or something like that, but just kind of try to arc it with his life. So the ending is so slow.
The way that I discovered you guys was the band Bay Faction. And they had, and Spotify has the fans also and enjoy. And so I came across you guys and I heard Sound in Silence. And so I was like, oh, I should probably listen to the rest of the record. And I went on to this song, and that whole part in the middle, that interlude kind of my jaw dropped to the floor because it's just one of those parts where you feel that so deep inside of you. Oh
man,
it's hard.
I'm glad you felt something. That's awesome.
Yeah, that I think I was driving down the Cape when I heard it for the first time, and that was nice. Windows down, volume up to 100, whatever. So that was
sick.
Yeah.
We have some in this new album that's coming out. We have some songs that are kind of in that same sort of vein.
I'm so glad to hear that.
Yeah, excited about it.
So Be Here follows Sutton.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just letting you whatever you feel like talking.
Yeah. I actually haven't thought about Be Here in such a long time. Axiom came out such a long time ago. And we, ever since Dempsey came out, I guess in 2016, we've just been releasing singles. So the Axiom seems so far away now, but Be Here was about just appreciating being alive and letting the day-to-day stress of life not get you down. Just take a second and remind yourself that you're alive, and that's a beautiful experience, because most of the universe isn't, and you have a chance to be conscious for a few moments. So just appreciate that.
And that, I think even the music to this song, the instrumentation kind of gets that point across. You have that kind of bouncy guitar sound in the background that I don't know, gives it that like spacious kind of vibe to it, and life is kind of just around you and you're a part of it, and enjoy it. I think that's great.
I'm glad you liked it. Thank you very much.
Belhara. I love the name so much. Just want you to know.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think Jack came up with that name, if I recall correctly.
Not you, Jack. The other Jack.
Other Jack. Yeah. No, I'm talking about myself in the third person. Belhara. Let me see. Another one I haven't thought about in a long time. So that song. I'm trying to remember the lyrics to it. I seriously haven't heard this song in years.
And no pressure. We're just chatting. So don't even.
I think when I was writing that song, let's see. I think that song was about writing and letting that and letting the dream of being a musician kind of be uplifting and kind of looking to the future in a optimistic way of making this my career. Yeah, that's what that song is about.
It's great. Yeah, the main reason why I love the title is that, like, isn't like a Viking, right? Isn't it Viking related?
Yeah.
It's It's, you guys, your titles are on point. That's, I guess, is the point I'm getting to. Which is
thank you very much.
kind of a segue to Chris asking you a question.
So the next song, Sinn Féin.
Yes.
At least for people of my generation, that's got a whole thing behind it. I mean, with Northern Ireland and the IRA. So is that what is being referenced here?
Yeah, in a way, this is kind of a touchy one because I know, Sinn Féin represented a lot of evil, and for some people, and then some people, not so much, but it became an extremist group, but we were reading about Michael Collins, and going back to history, and what he originally wanted to do with Ireland, and we kind of briefly read up on the history of Sinn Féin, and we just thought it was an interesting topic to write about, maybe from the perspective of Michael Collins in the beginning of his lifetime, as a sort of, in his words, sort of like a freedom kind of person, liberty. So yeah, it's got an interesting connotation because of the IRA and everything like that, but we just kind of tried to write it from a historical standpoint.
Well, what's interesting too, like if you strip away the connotation, and Sinn Féin is Gaelic for we ourselves, which sort of is the whole idea that your band has. This is us, this is ourselves, this is our thing. So that's cool.
I think you're right about that. And we haven't performed that song in years, but to this day it always gets me going whenever we do.
So following Sinn Féin is Sound and Silence, which I don't know, you probably would know better than I. Is that the one that's probably the biggest on the record? The one that was the most popular?
Yeah. Sound and Silence and Colors did really well. Those were the two that kind of kick-started this as like a possibility of being a career.
Yeah, that I love the driving part of that. Whoa, you can get everybody involved, and when you participate with the band in a song, that it's a good song. I actually named my private Snapchat story "Sound and Silence" after that. So
nice.
Because sometimes it's just quiet, and sometimes it's a bunch of bullshit. But so what can you tell us what this song's about?
Yeah. So. The song is kind of about the oppressive and manipulative media of the West. I think when I wrote this song, it was kind of at the beginning of like targeted advertising for news. How people kind of see what the algorithm tells them to see. If you click on an article by MSNBC or Fox News, whatever side you're on, they'll see that and they'll say, okay, well, let's just keep feeding them more of this news that they like, and inadvertently it creates this sort of manipulation of reality for a lot of people. And that song, we wanted to touch on that, saying, it's just like people just soak up whatever's in front of them, and you have this confirmation bias over time. And I think it's gotten even worse today, but yeah. So that's where that kind of came from.
Yeah, and you're right about it being super appropriate super appropriate explanation of how today is. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Especially this next week, we'll see how things go.
Ramping up. It's either going to skyrocket.
By the time this comes out, we'll know what happened. But
yeah, it's true, right?
Right now, we're in an uncertain period.
We'll be watching this in our bunker.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, right?
So the last track on the record is Colors, and definitely, I can see how Sound and Silence and Colors did very well, because Colors takes you on such a fantastic journey, and it's just a really nice wrap up to the whole thing.
Oh, thank you. That song kind of came from, I wrote it in my bedroom when I lived on Boylston Street, and kind of took it to the band, and they were like, "This is cool. It's like, let's figure out something to do with this." And the inspiration of those lyrics kind of came from that same day that we were kicked off stage in my high school. I was kind of like walking around the high school I went to for 4 years, and it was all empty because it was the evening time, school was out, and I was just kind of like, whoa, this is kind of crazy being back here for the first time in 2 years. And I kind of drew inspiration from that kind of introspective moment that I had. And it kind of blended with this fact that, your perception grows the older you get, and I would say that, I'm only 27, but you get older and your armor becomes thicker, but the challenges become harder as well. And there's more of them. And I was starting to get like the inklings of that, when I was up at school. And so I just kind of wrote off that moment of like starting to lose my youth. And I was only 20 at the time, so I was being a little fucking dramatic little bitch, but I kind of wrote off of that sort of feeling of like, oh, okay, I'm 20 now, okay, and then next thing I know I'm going to be 30. Next thing I know I'm going to be 40, and it's going to keep happening. And so
Yeah, and what I like about like Colors in comparison, like animation, the two of them, like they both just are a really nice ending to both records. Like it really brings everything together and just ties it all up. And it's a whole different sound, but each of them, but they do the trick. And so, but they share that sort of vibe. And I also get them confused sometimes for that same reason. You just do a great job of knowing.
Well, I'm glad that comes across, because I think something that's very important to us is that, a lot of people have messages along with their bands. And for a long time, I didn't really know what ours was, nor did I think that we really needed one. I don't think you necessarily need a message to make art. I sort of realized that I think, the message that comes across in our band is that it's all about the art, 100%. It's all about constantly finding that feeling and letting the art dictate its composition. And so a lot of our music, especially when all of our singles come out, sounds a lot different. We range from like really heavy stuff to like more open airy kind of things like Colors, and more bluesy stuff, darker, lighter. And one thing that is always important to us is that we never pick a direction for the music to go. We let the music dictate where it goes. And so we end up with songs like American Blood, which are more alt rocky. And then we have like songs like Coda, which are heavy and angry. And we have, on this new record, like a folk song. And then we have another like really Coldplay, but then we also have some of the heaviest music that we've written on here. And it's very important to us to let the art dictate what it does. And for a long time, labels, when we got out here, were constantly saying that we're still searching for our sound. They would kind of stand by the edge of the pool and look in, and they'd say like, okay, yeah, no, we'll come when you guys figure yourselves out. And what they didn't understand is that we know who we are, we know our sound.
Yeah.
It's just that it doesn't stick to a genre. No matter how we write, no matter how it comes out, it's going to sound like us. It's just not going to be the same, distorted guitars and this the entire time. And I think that, this new label that we have really understands us for the first time. And the reality of the situation is probably that we just weren't that good, and they didn't want to bounce on it yet. But that's what I like to tell myself, is that, we let the art dictate the art. and we're never going to stick to like a certain genre or sound. We're just going to write, and what comes out the best is what we're going to release. Sorry, that was a whole tangent I didn't need to go on.
Hey, you could talk for hours, and we're happy to have you. But you know, looking towards the future, still, you guys just had your single "In Too Deep" come out on September 24th, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Why don't you talk about "In Too Deep"? Because I love the song. It hits me in the feels every time. So,
Good.
So yeah, please talk about it.
Okay. Well, that song originally came about. I went to Virginia to visit my family and you know, a couple of hometown friends, and I went over to my friend Graham's house, and he just bought a house, so I was going over to check it out. We were gonna hang out, you know, drink, have, you know, catch up, and a couple of my other friends showed up, and you know, they all had their careers going. They're all buying property, and it just made me kind of like feel a little insecure about the fact that like I'm still doing what I was doing when I left at 18, guys. Like I'm 27 years old now. Like, whoops. And it just kind of struck a chord with me and made me feel like, God, like what am I doing? So I went home and I kind of wrote out the verses of this song, and it kind of connects really hard with me because, you know, these lyrics are some of the most proud, you know, I'm most proud of these lyrics because they were just a lot of like my raw feelings and facts, and less about, you know, being poetic. You know, like in the first verse in general, I say, I heard my boy just bought his own house, told me I could crash while I figure it out. And that's what he literally told me. He told me I could crash at his house whenever I needed it.
Yeah.
And it was just like, fuck, like I'm here writing music that isn't popular anymore. Like, what the fuck am I doing? And, but to contrast that, it's an addictive lifestyle. It's very destructive, but it's addictive. You know, like the highs that we experience when we go on tour and we play for people is unlike anything on earth, and it's something I never want to stop doing. I never want to give up. And it's a destructive lifestyle because it's a high risk, high reward kind of career, and it doesn't last very long. And it's a lot of long nights and going a month with getting an average of 3 to 4 hours of sleep a night. And but I wouldn't trade it for anything. And so that's where the lyric of, you know, this life's like heroin kind of comes in, because it's awesome, but at the same time it's fucking destructive.
That was the song I needed when it came out, because, you know, I'm only 21. I'm not that old, but, you know, I have friends that are just getting married and stuff. And I spent, you know, some time in high school and a little bit afterwards in a band, and I lost those friends and I pushed them away. And now they're on starting their lives and doing things. And I'm sitting here like, oh, well, you know, I'm still in school and living in my parents' house, and this is my life right now. So I listened to it at least 40 times that same day. I was like, dude, this hits me so hard.
Well, I was hoping that it would connect with creative people, because I think we all kind of share in that. Because when you're in a creative field, nobody gives a fuck about you except for you. No. Nobody cares about your career except for you. There's nothing holding you to doing it. You're doing it yourself. The bike's only going if you're pedaling it. And so I was hoping that it would connect with other artists out there and people in creative fields. So yeah, I'm glad we can share that.
Me too. So I want to give you the opportunity now to pimp anything you'd like, anything you guys got coming up, you know, because I love DPS. So please go for it.
Okay. Well, we're re-releasing our song Coda. We have a new music video coming out for it. I don't know when this is. You guys think this is going to come out pre the 12th or post the 12th, do you think?
This episode is coming out on the 11th.
The 11th?
Yeah.
Okay, sick. Might as well just make the debut here. Okay, we're releasing Coda. And we have, you know, we did a brand new mix on it. It sounds amazing. And we're releasing a music video with it. And if this comes out on the 11th, keep an eye out, because on November 12th, we're announcing something big, and we're really excited about it. Yeah.
All right.
So follow us on Instagram. We are DPS. Twitter. We are DPS. Get us on Xbox Music, Amazon Music, and Spotify and Apple Music, of course.
Yeah, and if you check out Esoterica, the podcast, on the 12th, we will share whatever that announcement may be, assuming it'll be an Instagram post or something. So
That'd be awesome, guys.
check us
Thank
out.
you.
We'll share it as well, and make sure you give them a follow because they deserve it.
Thank you very much, guys.
Jack, it's been awesome having you on. Really appreciate the time you spent with us today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. This is awesome. I had a lot of fun.
Yeah,
Thank you for letting me ramble.
Hopefully, we'll have you on in the future.
Yeah, I'd love to come on again.
Yeah.